Like in any good relationship, trust is important. And therefore, if you keep lying, that trust is broken. And that relationship now is one that is obviously at risk. I first met Minister Imbert 2 weeks after he became Minister of Finance. And that was after repeated requests to meet with him. And at that meeting, Imbert was only interested in one thing. How could he get his hands on CLICO's assets? And when I told him that the central bank had already formulated the CLICO resolution plan that had basically identified the assets that would be sold, when they would be sold, an estimated price, and we had already informed the public in the interest of transparency and good governance what this plan was all about, he just then became vexed and abruptly ended the meeting and walked out of the room. At no point in time then did we ever discuss the central bank overdraft, did we discuss any issue facing the economy such as foreign exchange. There were no discussion on economic matters.
The governor of the central bank came to the new Minister of Finance smiling to advise him that we only have cash to run the country for 3 days.
Let me come back to this lie that the country only had 3 days worth of money to run. First, we were already in September, which means at the end of that quarter, the oil monies would be coming in. We had about $5.5 billion in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and over $10 billion in official reserves. So there was no way that you could say that the country had no money and that the treasury was empty. That is one of the big lies that has been propagated together with a series of lies, such as that there's been an economic turnaround. We all know that there's no economic turnaround. This country has gone through 5 consecutive years of successive economic contraction. The numbers would show that between 2016 to 2019, we've contracted by almost 10%. The expectation is that there's going to be a further contraction, about 4.5% this year. The second issue that they've seemed to keep very quiet in a sense is the uncontrolled borrowing. This administration under Imbert has raised the borrowing limits, and using those increase in capacity, Imbert, as Minister of Finance, has actually borrowed close to about $45 billion in 5 years. And he's also authorized the borrowing of another $25 billion or so of state enterprises and public utilities. So when you add that up, it's a whopping $70 billion that has been borrowed by this administration in 5 years. And if we count now the fact that they've raided the Heritage and Stabilization Fund 3 times, so far the total brings us to about $1.2 billion taken from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And what is key about that is they've taken this money from the HSF, but there's been no accountability as to what it has been spent on. The general reply when Minister Imbert has been asked, well, what have you spent this HSF money on? He says, it's for the general service of Trinidad and Tobago. Right? So we have no idea where this money has actually gone. If we continue along this path of economic mismanagement, we will end in one place, and that's at the doors of the IMF. And the IMF will impose an adjustment program and tell us what to do. This administration is not keeping us from the IMF. They've done everything possible to push us closer to the IMF. In the relationship between government and citizens, we would expect that the government would tell us the truth about the state of the economy and how this economy is actually performing. Because if that isn't done, well, obviously trust is broken. And when you do find out what the actual state of the economy is, it might be, in a sense, sometimes too late. Government has to provide a level of trust to citizens. We need to know what is the true state of the economy, and the lies just need to stop.